All right, people, it's been a while since we've actually done a proper hand breakdown, and I got good news for you. We have access to the footage for the newest season of High Stakes Poker, so we can really break it down. Now, it's very important to note, if you want to watch this stuff, you have the full library of all the seasons of High Stakes Poker, including the new stuff. The show is back with Gabe Kaplan and AJ doing the commentary, just like you love. You got to get yourself a PokerGo subscription. PokerGo will cost you, what is it, like the same cost as a beer and a sandwich a month. I don't know, something in that neighborhood. But it's well worth it. It's a great show, obviously everybody's favorite cash game show. And this season, I played a decent amount, and I wanted to go over some of the hands a little more in detail that I played throughout, and we'll intercut it with the footage like we do. Because I think there's a lot of lessons in these. You know, they're all different, but they're all subtle too. So, well, they're not all subtle. Some are subtle and some are like, yeah, you'll see. Anyway, let's talk about the first one, okay? So the way this game was set up early on in the season was the blinds are 2 and 400 with a $400 big blind ante, okay? Up to this point, there hadn't been any straddles because JRB didn't show up. When JRB shows up, boom, the 800's on there, makes the game a lot bigger. For the early going, we had 100,000 buy-in, and that'll go up as the season progresses as well. But in this hand, the Godfather of poker, Mr. Doyle Brunson, goes ahead and raises it under the gun. And he's got a pretty little hand here, the Queen Jack of clubs.
And we're back. Doyle's got Queen Jack suited, raises to 1,200. Daniel ace-8 suited calls.
The same suited.
Yes.
And Aldemir's going to defend the big blind, 800 more with 7-4 suited.
Folds around to me, and I'm on the button. And I've got ace-8 of clubs. Okay, so now with this hand, against an under-the-gun raise from Doyle or whatever, it's not a great spot, really, because Doyle's range is going to be ace-heavy, big pair heavy, that raises in this spot, right? So if he has an ace, it's very likely, a better ace, et cetera, et cetera. And he's got some suited connectors in there too, because Doyle likes to throw it around. He wrote Super System, and in Super System, the original book, there's a lot of talk about suited connectors. He limped with them, but he definitely played them, and it was part of the strategy that he developed. And I remember reading that book and it reconfirming some ideas I had about these 6-7 suited type hands. But anyway, with the big blind ante, we're playing a cash game for TV. I decided to play a little loosey-goosey. Now I'm on the button, so on the button you can play a wider range of hands. Ace-8 suited is borderline. You could 3-bet it, but I don't like it. I'm not against Doyle's opening range from under the gun. I just don't like that at all. So I'm just going to call, play the hand in position, feel like, we're deep enough I could do some stuff, right? So from the big blind, Corey Aldemir, the world champion of poker last year. Great job. Always an amazing feat to win the main event. You got hats off. And it couldn't happen to a nicer guy. He is one of the nicest guys on the tour. Always a smile, very humble, and good player too. I remember getting outplayed by him a couple years ago and realizing I needed to go back in. Well, I didn't get outplayed. I did a little. I don't remember. Whatever. You know what I'm saying. I knew he was good. So he defends, of course, with the 7-4 hearts. Totally standard in this spot. That's a hand you got to play.
Couple of clubs on the flop.
And an ace. Huge hand for Daniel Negreanu. Doyle, who's got the flush draw and an inside straight draw, is going to bet. What will Daniel do?
He calls.
He could have raised there and got called.
Now we got 4,200 in this pot, and boom. Booyakasha. Booyakasha. What with this flop? Ace, 10, deuce with 2 clubs. Yours truly, top pair, nut flush draw. Love in life, right? 3-way pot. Corey checks as he's going to do, I think, 100% of the time here. I don't think he's ever going to lead the ace-10 deuce with any part of his range. Now, if it came 3-5-6, 4-5-7, there's some spots where Corey might lead. On this flop, always checking. So his check doesn't mean anything, right? It's important to know these kind of things. Doyle bets 2,500 into 42, okay? I'll take a sip here. What does that tell you? When Doyle bets 2,500 into 42 on an ace flop after he raised under the gun, okay? Start thinking now, because we're going to get to it by the river, but start thinking about what kind of range of hands he does this with and what kind of range of hands he doesn't do this with that size, okay? Either way, no matter what, This is not a spot you're raising. You're always flatting here. It's just, you know, if you punch this into a solver or whatever, it's rarely going to have a raise with a hand like this. My hand is very, very strong. I also have a very strong draw. If, unfortunately, Doyle does have a better ace, a set, or something like that, I'm just drawn to a flush. So I'm in no great shape. Don't necessarily want to bloat the pot just yet. So I call. Corey obviously lets go of his hand.
Deuce on the turn.
That's going to stop Doyle.
The turn card comes the deuce of spades, and Doyle checks. So, decision time. What would you do? What would you do here with top pair nut flush draw? And why, right? Some of you would say, okay, I'm going to bet here. Okay, why are you betting? Some of you might say to protect your hand. Oh yeah? To protect your hand against what? You've got the nut flush draw, right? So what are you protecting against? You're only protecting against maybe as queen jack or 7-8. So if he does, like, and hits it with the flush, you win a big pot. It's also just 6 outs. Like, when you're looking at a situation where you don't have to worry, so, I got to protect against 6 outs when I'm like 80% favorite. It's okay. You also have to have some really strong hands in your check back range as well, so that you can arm up for the river and battle in spots. Because if you become that player who doesn't check back turn or flop enough with some good hands, by the river, other opponents are just going to exploit the hell out of you by sizing up huge and being able to pound you because they know, Daniel can't have an ace or better here because he would have bet the turn, right? So this is a very good hand to check here, I think, for lots of reasons. I think, like, first and foremost, I mean, Doyle could easily have us beat, right? He could have ace jack, ace queen, ace king, right? He could have a set. He could be check raising us. And if he's check raising us, we have to fold? Ooh, that sounds awful, doesn't it? All those things sound awful. So this seems like, you know, and again, I didn't run these in a solver, but I can just tell you that a lot of the time it's going to want you to check in this spot, especially if we did a thing called node locking, which is to, you know, condense Doyle's range to what I think it really is in this spot. Okay, so I check back the turn.
Daniel checks. I don't know if he's trapping or he thinks Doyle might have a bigger ace.
9 on the river.
Big Papa's through with it.
River's the 9 of diamonds. Doyle checks. So here's where you value bet, right? That's where you value bet, isn't it? Be honest. Kitty Quo. Kitty Quo say, no, see if I do an accent, people will get mad. But I would just read the text that she wrote it. How believe Daniel check back River? She's sick in hospital, eyes bad. But you have to read the tweet. Can you put the tweet in there? Because it's funny. She's like, what the hell are you doing? So this is what sort of prompted me to do this hand, because she's so confused as to why I would check back this river, right? Why not get some value? All right. Remember before when I told you on the flop to start thinking about what Doyle's range does, what Doyle's range looks like that bets 2,500 on that flop? Remember when I told you to do that? All right. What'd you come up with? Okay. Ace for sure, right? Sets for sure. Aces up for sure. Do you think he does it with a 10 for 2,500? Nah, not Doyle. Does he have jacks, queens, kings? Psh, probably not. Probably not Doyle, okay? So then you have to ask yourself this. I'm betting for value here with the ace. What hand can Doyle have in his range that I want him to call with? Oh, this is where the problem lies, right? If we've already ruled out, for the most part, that he doesn't have jacks, queens, kings, or a 10, right? The only hands he's going to call us with, for the most part, are an ace that chops, because there's deuce out there, so we just have an ace, the deuces and a 10. Or he's going to call us when he has his beat, or he's going to check raise us when he's trapping. When he's made aces up, when he's got a full house, any of those hands might be check raising us, and he may be check calling with better. So that's called value cutting yourself. Like, if he has ace jack, he might decide to just check the river, and then we're going to be the dummies who go, there you go, I'm going to bet half pot, try to get value. From what? From what? Very important lesson here is this. If you want to value bet, you have to really think deeply about what exactly you want your opponent to have to call you, and then dig back into the hand earlier and ask yourself, can he have those hands? And my conclusion was that Doyle really isn't going to show up here with jacks, queens, or kings. And even if he did, I still think he probably makes the laydown. Unless you bet really, really small, then he probably pays it up. All right, I checked.
Why didn't he bet on the river?
Queen,
And beat it. Oh my God, we need
Because he thinks Doyle might have a bigger ace.
club.
And Daniel can't beat ace jack or ace queen. And he didn't think Doyle would call with anything less.
Well, it had all the makings of a big pot, but it didn't quite get there. Negreanu has to be content with dragging a small one.
As it turned out, obviously, knowing Doyle's exact hand, the queen jack of clubs, I would have loved to have bet turn for some value, and then, enough to keep him priced in, and enough that if we hit it, I win a bigger pot. But once the board pairs two, even the nut flush against a guy like Doyle, I can't play a bazooka-style pot on the river. Just can't do it. Because he can have it, pocket tens. He can have, pocket aces. He can have ace-deuce suiteds, stuff like that. I guess I could have that too a little bit. But anyway, lesson here is this. When value betting, really break down, because here's the thing. There's another sort of added bonus to this lesson, is that in these spots where you're looking for thin value, sometimes by checking, you also save yourself from either A, getting check raise bluffed off the pot, or B, just check raise and calling it off, or just losing a much bigger pot. Now, here's the thing. What Doyle could do after I check back this turn and then bet the river, I don't think Doyle would do this, but some players will do this to you, okay? Where they check that river, thinking they might have some showdown value. Then you bet, and they're like, but your range is capped. I know you don't have a full house. And then all of a sudden, they come with the 3x pot Adamo check raise on your ass, right? And now your value bet looks pretty stupid, don't it? But meanwhile, they got Stugats. They turned that hand into a bluff, whatever it was. Let's say king, queen, or something like that. So when you're making a value bet, making sure there's value there. So again, if you enjoyed this video, we got more coming. If you want to watch high stakes poker, make sure to get a subscription at PokerGo. Very thankful that they allowed us to use this footage to make these breakdowns. So till next time, I don't know, see ya.